In 1901, in the heart of an emerging city, St. Mary Hospital was built. Built with the ambition to be a beacon of hope and healing, its red brick walls and tall windows would soon become witnesses to countless tragedies. The vision of Dr. Harold Thompson, a renowned surgeon of the time, was of a place where advanced medicine could save lives and alleviate suffering. Initially, the hospital prospered, attracting patients from far and wide, all looking for a cure for their illnesses. However, fate had other plans. Shortly after the inauguration, an outbreak of tuberculosis ravaged the region. Patients began to die in alarming numbers, transforming the hospital corridors into a scene of despair. Panic set in when doctors and nurses also began to succumb to the disease. The wing designated for the infected was quickly expanded, but it seemed that the more space they created, the more souls perished. The situation became even more dire when unexplained accidents began to occur during the construction of the new wings. Workers reported feeling shadowy presences and hearing whispers that led them to make fatal mistakes. One of the most terrifying cases involved a workman who, while trying to fix a beam to the ceiling, fell from a considerable height after claiming to have seen a shadowy figure hovering over him. He didn't survive the fall, and his description of the specter before he died left everyone at the hospital on alert. These events cast a shadow over St. Mary's Hospital, and rumors began to spread among the community. Many believed that the hospital was built on cursed ground, and stories of ancient Indian cemeteries began to circulate. Even with all efforts to contain the disease and renovations to modernize the structure, the hospital could not get rid of the feeling of being surrounded by unknown and evil forces. The situation came to a head when, on a cold December night, Dr. Thompson mysteriously disappeared. He had last been seen in his office, reviewing plans for a new pediatric wing. His disappearance left no clues, and the only thing found was his diary, open to a page that mentioned voices he heard at night, calling his name. With Dr. Thompson's disappearance, the hospital's reputation was further tarnished. These initial events were just the beginning of the horrors that would come to haunt St. Mary's Hospital. As the years passed, the institution would see more tragedies, and the hauntings would become more frequent and disturbing. In the next part, we will explore the arrival of a couple of doctors whose passion and dedication would be tragically interrupted, beginning a series of hauntings that would leave an indelible mark on the hospital's history. As the years passed, St. Mary's Hospital's infamy continued to grow, but the arrival of a new couple of doctors brought new hope to the institution. In the 1920s, Dr. Jonathan Parker and his wife, Dr. Emily Parker, joined the hospital staff with a vision of transforming St. Mary's into a center of medical excellence. Both were known for their tireless dedication and exceptional skills, quickly earning the respect of colleagues and patients. Jonathan and Emily met in medical school and shared an intense passion for healing and advancing medical science. Their love for their work and for each other was evident, and together, they set out to face the challenges the hospital presented. Under his leadership, new medical practices were introduced, and a series of renovations were initiated to modernize the hospital's facilities. It seemed like St. Mary's was finally starting to shake off its haunted past. However, this new era of hope was tragically cut short. On a fateful autumn night, Dr. Emily Parker was found dead in one of the operating rooms. The circumstances of her death were mysterious and disturbing. She was alone in the room, and there were no signs of a struggle or the presence of another person. Only a peculiar mark on his wrist, similar to a burn, suggested something out of the ordinary. The autopsy was unable to determine the exact cause of death, leaving everyone perplexed and horrified. Emily's death devastated Jonathan, who spiraled into despair and obsession. He became convinced that something supernatural was involved in his wife's death and began tirelessly investigating the rumors and legends surrounding the hospital. Reports from nurses and patients who claimed to have seen Emily's figure wandering the halls began to multiply. Her presence was often accompanied by an overwhelming feeling of sadness and intense cold. Events took an even darker turn when Jonathan began recounting his own experiences with the paranormal. He claimed to hear Emily's voice at night, whispering her name and begging for help. Convinced that Emily was trapped between this world and the next, Jonathan began holding spiritual sessions and studying occult practices in hopes of communicating with her and uncovering the truth behind her death. Meanwhile, the hospital began to be the scene of inexplicable phenomena. Medical equipment worked on its own, doors locked and unlocked for no apparent reason, and inexplicable shadows appeared on the walls. The atmosphere became increasingly oppressive and frightening, affecting everyone who worked and was treated there. Dr. Emily Parker's hauntings became part of the hospital's legend, and many believed her restless spirit still roamed the halls, searching for peace. The impact of Emily's death and subsequent supernatural events not only shook the hospital's morale, but also fueled St. Mary's dark reputation. Jonathan's efforts to find answers led him to explore darker areas of the human psyche and the supernatural, opening doors that perhaps should have remained closed. Over time, Jonathan Parker also mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind a legacy of dedication and tragedy. His absence increased the mystery and fear that surrounded the hospital. The Parkers' disappearance became one of many haunting stories associated with St. Mary's Hospital, a place where the line between life and death seemed to be dangerously blurred. In the 1940s, in an effort to revitalize St. Mary's Hospital and expand its services, a new wing was built dedicated to treating psychiatric patients. The psychiatric ward, although initially seen as necessary progress, quickly became one of the darkest chapters in the hospital's history. Under the leadership of Dr. Richard Harmon, a psychiatrist with controversial methods, the ward soon gained a fearsome reputation. Dr. Harmon believed that advances in medical science could be achieved through radical experiments. His techniques included treatments such as electroshock, lobotomies, and insulin shock therapies, often carried out without adequate consent from patients. He justified these methods as necessary for the progress of psychiatry, but the results were often disastrous, leaving patients in even worse conditions than before. Patients in the psychiatric ward reported terrifying experiences. Screams were constantly heard throughout the corridors, echoing throughout the night, disturbing the peace of other patients and hospital staff. Many of these patients, after being subjected to Harmon's experiments, mysteriously disappeared. Official reports mentioned transfers or discharges, but the records were incomplete and often contradictory, suggesting something more sinister. Hospital workers began reporting unexplained phenomena in the psychiatric ward. Nurses claimed to see shadowy figures moving through the hallways and feel an oppressive, malevolent presence. Medical equipment operated erratically, and objects moved on their own. One of the scariest events occurred when a nurse, working the night shift, found a treatment room completely covered in blood, without any logical explanation. The next day, the room was clean as if nothing had happened. Dr. Harmon's behavior also became increasingly erratic. He was seen pacing the halls of the psychiatric ward, muttering to himself and performing strange rituals in his office. His colleagues noticed a dark change in him, as if he was being consumed by the same forces that haunted the hospital. Rumors began to circulate that Harmon was trying to communicate with the spirits of patients he had lost, hoping to find redemption or answers to his own demons. The situation reached a critical point when, one stormy night, the psychiatric ward caught fire. The fire was devastating, quickly consuming the ward and killing many of the patients trapped in their rooms. Dr. Harmon was last seen entering the burning building, shouting that he needed to save his patients. His body was never found, and many believe he was consumed by fire along with the souls he had tormented. The fire left St. Mary's Hospital in ruins, and the psychiatric ward was permanently closed. Investigations into the fire revealed that it was likely started intentionally, but the culprit was never discovered. The events in the psychiatric ward added another layer of mystery and terror to the hospital's already notorious reputation. Stories of hauntings and paranormal activity increased, and St. Mary's became a destination for ghost hunters and those curious about the supernatural. In the decades following the devastating fire in the psychiatric ward, St. Mary's Hospital was never the same. What was once a symbol of hope and healing was now marked by tragedy and the supernatural. The hospital's decline was inevitable. Many doctors and nurses abandoned their positions, unable to deal with the strange events that had become part of daily life there. Those who remained were constantly haunted by unexplained sounds, disturbing sights, and a persistent sense of fear. In the 1960s, attempts to renovate and modernize the hospital were met with resistance. Construction workers have reported freak accidents and unexplained incidents. Tools went missing, equipment failed for no apparent reason, and some workers claimed to have seen ghostly figures while working in the old wings. The renovation project was eventually abandoned, leaving parts of the hospital in ruins. Reports of paranormal phenomena continued to multiply. Patients and staff began sharing stories of frightening encounters with the unexplainable. A nurse, who worked the night shift, described an incident in which she saw a female figure floating down the hallway, dressed in an old nurse's uniform. The figure, which many believed to be the spirit of Dr. Emily Parker, disappeared around the corner, leaving a trail of intense cold. Another disturbing story involved a young patient admitted for a simple surgery. During his recovery, he began talking about a dark man who came to visit him every night. The boy described the man in chilling detail, a pale face and empty eyes, wearing a doctor's coat. The night before his release, the boy was found dead in his bed, with the expression of terror frozen on his face. There was no medical explanation for his sudden death, and many believed the shadowy man was the troubled spirit of Dr. Jonathan Parker. Over the years, St. Mary's Hospital has become a place of interest for ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, and enthusiasts of the supernatural. Documentaries, television shows, and investigative articles brought the hospital's dark stories to light, attracting curious visitors who wanted to experience the terror firsthand. Many of these visitors reported strange phenomena during their explorations, from doors that closed on their own to whispers that seemed to come from the walls. In one such investigation, a group of paranormal researchers recorded a series of unexplained events on video. The cameras captured orbs of light floating through the hallways, voices murmuring names, and shadows moving quickly through the rooms. In one of the most disturbing recordings, a wheelchair was seen moving alone through a deserted hallway. Investigators, who were initially skeptical, left the hospital convinced that the place was indeed haunted. The hospital finally officially closed its doors in the 1980s, but its legacy of terror continued to grow. Local residents avoided going near the building at night, and stories of ghostly sightings became part of urban folklore. Despite being closed and abandoned, St. Mary's has retained its power to attract those fascinated by the macabre. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of Dr. Jonathan Parker in the late 1960s continued to torment those trying to understand the haunting events at St. Mary's Hospital. Dr. Parker, known for his controversial methods and his obsessive investigations into the supernatural, disappeared without a trace. His last appearance was witnessed by a janitor who claimed to have seen the doctor enter the old psychiatric ward on the night of the fire, muttering something about saving the lost. Since then, his absence has become one of the hospital's biggest enigmas. Decades passed without any clues as to Parker's whereabouts being found, until, in 2010, a group of urban explorers made a shocking discovery. While investigating the wreckage of the psychiatric ward, they found a secret compartment behind a false wall. Inside this hiding place was an old, dusty diary belonging to Dr. Jonathan Parker himself. The diary contained detailed notes about his paranormal experiences and observations, offering a disturbing glimpse into his mind in the final days before his disappearance. The diary revealed that Parker was convinced the hospital was haunted by the restless spirits of the patients who had suffered and died there. His notes mentioned voices he heard, shadows that followed him, and terrifying visions that disturbed his sleep. In one of the last entries, he wrote about a figure who appeared to be Dr. Emily Parker, his late wife, asking for help in freeing the souls trapped in the hospital. Parker believed that Emily was trying to guide him to find a way to appease the spirits and end the cycle of hauntings. The notes also detailed experiments Parker performed in an attempt to communicate with the spirits. He utilized a combination of medical practices and occult rituals, believing he could find a way to free imprisoned souls. One particularly disturbing entry mentioned a session in which he felt a strong, evil presence that warned him to abandon his quest, under threat of dire consequences. The discovery of the diary brought a new level of interest and terror to the already infamous hospital. Paranormal investigators and historians have analyzed the contents, trying to decipher Parker's intentions and possible connections between his experiments and supernatural phenomena. It was believed that the doctor had opened doors to the afterlife, without knowing how to close them, intensifying the hauntings that had plagued St. Mary's for so many years. With this new information, many ventured into the hospital in the hope of uncovering more secrets and finding definitive answers about the tragic events that marked the place. Stories of visitors experiencing paranormal activity increased, with many reporting encounters with the figure of Parker, still dressed in his medical scrubs, wandering the halls in search of redemption. The legacy of Dr. Jonathan Parker, along with the dark secrets revealed in his diary, perpetuated the aura of mystery and terror surrounding St. Mary's Hospital. For many, the hospital has become a symbol of how the pursuit of the unknown can lead to dire and uncontrollable consequences. The restless souls of St. Mary's continue to haunt the ruins, and Parker's disappearance remains unsolved, further fueling the macabre folklore. St. Mary's Hospital, with its walls filled with secrets and tragedies, remains an indelible stain on the city's history. Since its founding in the early 20th century, the hospital has been the scene of countless inexplicable events, tragedies, and hauntings that have haunted generations of doctors, patients, and visitors. Each era brought its own set of horrors: the tuberculosis epidemic that ushered in an era of despair, the tragic story of the Parker couple, the cruel experiments in the psychiatric ward, and the unsolved mystery of Dr. Jonathan Parker's disappearance. The dark atmosphere and paranormal phenomena that permeate St. Mary's Hospital are not just stories to scare the curious. They are vivid reminders of suffering and supernatural experiences that defy any logical explanation. The hospital's legends became part of local folklore, keeping curiosity and fear alive in the community. Reports of unexplained sightings and events continue to attract ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, and those seeking to unravel the mysteries of the unknown. Recent discoveries, especially the diary of Dr. Jonathan Parker, have added a new layer of complexity to St. Mary's already intricate legacy. His notes revealed not only his obsession with the supernatural, but also the dangers of venturing beyond the limits of human understanding. Parker opened doors to the afterlife that perhaps should never have been opened, and the impact of his actions are still felt to this day. The souls of those who suffered at the hands of the hospital seem trapped, seeking a peace they may never find. Despite the hospital's official closure, its influence endures. The abandoned building, with its broken windows and dark hallways, serves as a constant reminder of the tragedies that occurred there. Local residents avoid the site, and the more superstitious believe that any attempt to demolish or renovate the hospital will result in supernatural retribution. For many, St. Mary's is a cursed place, where the line between life and death is dangerously thin. St. Mary's Hospital's impact on the community is undeniable. Stories of hauntings and mysteries have become an integral part of local identity, influencing everything from folklore to cultural traditions. Younger generations are warned of the dangers of approaching the hospital, and stories told around campfires keep the events of the past alive. St. Mary is a reminder that the unknown and unexplained are always lurking, waiting to be discovered. While the secrets of St. Mary's Hospital continue to fascinate and terrify, the search for answers persists. Ghost hunters, investigators, and the curious continue to explore its ruins, hoping to uncover the mysteries that still haunt its walls. Stories of hauntings and paranormal phenomena keep the legend of St. Mary's alive, a place where science, the supernatural, and human despair intertwine in terrifying ways. In the end, St. Mary's Hospital remains an enigma, a place where the horrors of the past continue to echo in the present. Its dark secrets and hauntings not only define the hospital's history, but also serve as a constant reminder of the limits of human understanding and the dangers of challenging the unknown. While the ruins of the hospital still stand, curiosity and fear will continue to attract those who seek to understand the deepest secrets of St. Mary's Hospital, ensuring that its stories are never forgotten.